Hey everybody, welcome back to I Know a Guy. If you're new here, my name's Anthony. I'm all about building connections that matter. This podcast is your go-to place for discovering inspiring entrepreneurs, business owners, professionals, and just people doing cool things. For example, today we're meeting Mike Brennan, a creative consultant, communicator, and author of Make Fun a Habit, the creative playbook for making life and work fun again. Mike's passions lies in helping individuals and organizations rediscover creativity, infuse fun into their daily lives, and unlock their full potential. Whether through his transformative daily creative habit process or his work with renowned clients, Mike's insights promise to inspire and motivate. How are you doing today, Mike?
I'm doing well, thanks, Anthony.
Yeah, I'm really excited to have you on. I've loved our conversation that we had, and then we were just on your podcast. I had a lot of fun
Yeah.
over there, so thanks again for having me. But other than that, just to start off, where are you located? Where are you calling in from?
I am currently located in Nashville, Tennessee.
Okay, you a lifer there? Are you new to the area?
I am new to the area. I actually just moved here this past September, so it's been a couple of months. And previous to that, I was in the Northeast Bermuda Triangle, as I like to say, which is New York, Long Island, New Jersey, around those areas. Yeah.
Okay. What are you liking about the Nashville area?
I really like how organic conversations and opportunities come about. You can be in a coffee shop and overhear people talking about something, maybe looking for somebody in a particular role or with a skill set, and all of a sudden you're striking up a conversation and you may be collaborating or partnering with something. And also just the openness. I think there's a general support of the arts and of creativity, and they understand dreams here. They understand what it's like to pursue something and make something of your own. And so I love being here in the place where that's not weird. It's not the oddball thing.
Yeah, I get that. Nashville's definitely on the list, or just Tennessee in general. It's definitely on the list of like places that I'd really like to live, possibly. Not sure exactly where I want to put roots down, but that's on the very short list. What's fun there? What have you discovered? Whether it's food, entertainment, whatever it is.
Yeah, I've been making it a point to explore as much as I can because I'm like, everything's new for me, right? Everything's shiny. And so really fostering my sense of curiosity and going like, I've heard people talk about these specific places. It's time for me to go out and use whatever opportunities I have to go. Like, for instance, I was able to go to the Ryman Auditorium, which is, famous. And I was like, I need to find an excuse to get there. And so while I didn't see a band, I did see a comedian, Mike Birbiglia, who, if you are not familiar with him, he is an incredible storyteller and comedian. And it was great. So I got to like kind of kill two birds with one stone with that opportunity, seeing him for the first time and then also being at the Ryman for the first time. And then, just honestly getting out in the local communities and fostering some relationships and finding out who's who and what's what. Food wise, I'm not too adventurous, but there's some pretty good Nashville hot chicken that I've enjoyed here, and some I have certainly needed some Tums afterwards. I'll say that.
Yeah, good for your soul, bad for your gut. I get it.
Yes,
Definitely for some bubble. So awesome. So, what can you tell us about what you do?
Yeah. So people ask me like, what do you do? And I say, I am a creator and communicator who tells stories on pages and stages. And people go, oh, okay, I'm listening. Now, what does that actually mean? And I say, okay, well, on the creator side, my background's graphic design. I went to school for that in New York City, worked in the industry for a really long time. In the corporate side of things, and then also small places that were kind of like mom and pop type companies, and still do that, but do that for my own clients now, and eventually brought illustration into that and some more art, like some of the stuff you see behind me. That's my work, and so visual art being the emphasis on creator, but then also I'm kind of multi curious, I guess you could say, in terms of creativity. And so I also create things like a podcast, Creative Chats podcast, which you mentioned earlier. And I write books and create resources for other people to be creative, because I've seen the difference that creativity has made in my life. And I want to see that impact happen for other people. I want to see them go through that transformation where they have this idea, they have this thing that they've been wanting to create for a long time. They actually get traction and they put it out into the world and they see what happens to themselves as a result of that. And so that can take the form of speaking, that can take the form of creative coaching. There's a lot of different kind of modalities to that, but essentially underneath it all, I really love to see people come alive when it comes to creativity and having fun in the process.
Yeah, that's super interesting because people think creativity, they're thinking, oh, I'm not a musician, I'm not a writer, I can't paint.
Right.
It's just a lot more than that. Where are some areas where you've seen creativity where maybe you had a preconceived notion, there's probably no creativity in this area? Because we all do that. We all kind of, prejudge things, and a lot of times it can surprise us. But where have you seen creativity that you wouldn't normally expect it?
Oh yeah, I think I get into conversations all the time. Like you said, it's people think the arts. They think I can't dance, I can't paint, I can't sing, I can't do that stuff. Therefore, I'm not creative. And I'm like, whoa, what you're talking about is being artistic. That's different. That's a form of creativity, but that's not the whole of creativity. And so I love to get into these conversations where we start to unpack and say, okay, what does creativity look like for you? Because odds are you're being creative and you don't even realize it. And so some of those places I've seen that maybe are not typical are people who maybe are particularly organized and they're very buttoned up, and they would think, well, I'm not creative because I'm not like the wild artist type of thing. And I'm like, no, that's fine. Your form of creativity is actually taking maybe information, taking systems, bringing order and structure to things. And that is so needed because there's a lot of things that would not function without that structure and that system. And as somebody who's not gifted in a lot of those areas, I am more unorganized than I am organized. I need those people in my life that bring some stability and structure to those places. And so once we can identify what that looks like for somebody, and then we can celebrate that, then we can say, okay, let's turn you loose on purpose so that you can do more of that and get creative in the right way that actually makes you want to do more of the things that you're doing and more of the things that are within your gifting,
How would you define creativity then if it's not the arts, if it's not just like what people say? Like, is there a good definition or a good, I guess, example where somebody's like, I'm not creative, and you're like, do you do this? Because you probably are. You just don't recognize it as such.
Yeah. I think a lot of times it comes down to ideas and the way we see things, and then taking action based upon what we see and what we want to happen. So that could be, I have an idea for a book and I'm going to sit down and write that book and create these words on a page. It could be a painting. I have this idea for this visual piece in my mind, and I want to see this become a reality and not just live in my mind. It could be, I want to live a certain life. I want to create the life that I long to lead. And here's me identifying what the components of that are, and me figuring out, how do I put that into my schedule so that I'm taking action? How do I say no to certain things and yes to other things? Like, all these things are part of creativity on a much grander scale. And again, I think once we get real specific with what does that look like for me, then we can really be intentional about it.
So having ideas and taking action, I really
Mm-hmm.
like that as just the very, very basic bones of creativity. I guess a lot of people, they fail there because they might have imposter syndrome. They're like, I want
Mm-hmm.
to write a book, but who am I? Or, I want to do X, Y, Z, but I don't have all the knowledge. I'm not good at that. What do you tell those people that are dealing with imposter syndrome?
I would say, first off, it is absolutely normal. I think everyone, whenever, especially you're starting something new, and there's this gap between what you see in your head and what you see that you've actually produced or want to produce, it's easy for you to think, oof, I'm not the right person for this, or I'm not talented enough, or we get into the comparison trap of, there's so many better people doing this. There are so many people already doing what it is that I want to do. Who am I? Should I even do this? What if I fail? Like, all that stuff that just, it comes kind of like avalanching on us. And I think realizing that everyone experiences this, first off, and second of all, it is something that is not necessarily ever going to go away completely, but we can quiet it. We can say, I acknowledge you, but I'm not listening to you. And that takes practice, and that takes, honestly, a lot of times action, because so many times we want the clarity of something before we take action, but that's not really the way it works. Clarity happens when we take action. And the more action we take, the more confidence we can build, the more bad work we do, and we need to get the bad work out of the way so we can get to the good work. Um, when I was first, I had kind of taken this period of my life where I took 10 years and I didn't do anything creative really whatsoever in terms of visual art, in terms of the things that were in my gifting and even my training. And I ended up suffering from depression because of that and a bunch of other life situations. But it brought me to this point of asking, going, is this something that can be part of my life again? I don't even know. And if so, what would that look like? And me wrestling with a lot of lies I had told myself of like, I'm not, quote, a real artist because I struggle with drawing proportions, or because I can't do what's called a photorealistic style, meaning when I render something, it doesn't look like a photograph. And so for whatever reason, that was the benchmark for me to say that's successful. That's what people will pay for. That's what gets heralded as true artists. And because I can't do that, I must be lesser than, or I must not be, quote, a real artist. And even though I knew that there were tons of artists who did work that did not look like that, for me, whatever reason, that I latched onto that as success. And if I couldn't attain that, then I was going to be a failure. And so I had to work through a lot of that. And the way I worked through that was actually by just that, doing the work, showing up every single day and doing something, exploring, being curious, being willing to fail, being willing to wrestle with that voice that keeps coming up going, who are you kidding? This is never going to amount to anything. This is never going to look like what you want it to look like. No one's ever going to pay for this, et cetera, et cetera. And so I would say, if you're struggling with that, you're in great company. Don't stop. Take action.
Yeah, that's fantastic advice. And a lot of us, and by a lot, I mean the vast majority, I mean high 90 percentile of people deal with that every single day where, you may be surprised you talk to somebody that's, you look from the outside and you go, man, they have it all together. They know what they're
Right.
doing, and they've had crippling issues in the past whether it be real or imaginary barriers that they put up, which a lot of us do, where, like you said, I can't do this exactly perfect, so I can't do any of it. It's like, well, that's where your creativity comes in. It's like, yeah, maybe I'm
Mm-hmm.
not best at this, but I could be the best at this. And that's it's kind of the yin and yang to it, the two sides of the same coin. You telling yourself you can't, and then you just figuring a way to do something different anyway. So that's
Yeah.
awesome. I really, really like that. And a lot of people need to hear it, and they need to hear it often. They need to hear it said different ways, because when you talk to any group of people, a certain percentage are going to resonate with you, a certain percentage won't. So we got to say the exact same thing 1,000 different ways so we can get it out to everybody. And it's important to hear. And it's important to see that, all of us are kind of dealing with the same things. We're entrepreneurs. We want to be entrepreneurs. We're been in the business for 30 years, 50 years, whatever it is. We're all still dealing with the same stuff. It's, I'm not good enough. I can't do this. I'm set in my ways. I can't teach an old dog new tricks. It doesn't matter. Just doing it and then figuring it out. It's super, super important. So awesome. So I guess you've been doing this now. What's your favorite thing about what you're doing?
I think once I figured out that at the core of this was following curiosity, when you lean into that, you realize you never run out of curiosity and there's always possibilities. And so I think that's been my favorite part, is knowing there's always more possibilities. And that could be me having an idea and chasing it down to go, what does this look like as a piece of visual art? What would this look like as a podcast episode? What would this look like maybe as something in written form? What would this look like? And just asking those questions of, I could create something. I know I have that ability. What's the best forum for this? What's the best way for me to create this and get it out to people so it's most accessible and feels like it's most aligned with what it is I'm trying to say and share? And so I think knowing there's endless possibilities, I'm never going to run out of creativity. I'm never going to run out of things to think about and explore and play and mess up and break and build on top of and iterate and all those things. That's what I love about creativity.
Yeah, it's true. It is absolutely outside of our ability to figure it all out and do everything. There's that common trope, or cliche where it's, there's nothing new under the sun, and yet we're still super interested in all the new stuff that keeps happening, right? Because
Yeah.
yeah, it may be same, it's still paint on canvas, but it's different enough, it's created enough that it's inspiring. So
Hmm.
realizing that is super important because there's an infinite amount of variation. So, do something slightly different. Awesome. Interesting. So what are some pain points that, people might have that if they're going through X, Y, and Z, you're the person that they should be talking to?
Yeah, I think a lot of people doubt their abilities. They doubt the role of creativity in their lives, or they think that it is something that's a nice to. In other words, well, it's nice if I had the time. It's nice if I had the money. It's nice if I didn't have all these other practical things bearing down on me, all these responsibilities. Maybe at that point in my life, I could actually do something that was kind of more for me, the creative stuff. And so I think that tension is in a lot of people where they realize there's something more that's either going untapped, something that every once in a while it kind of bubbles to the surface and gets a little itchy. And they're like, I feel like I need to do something with this. I used to do this back in the day and I put it on a shelf or I put it in the closet. And now I've got maybe this afternoon and I start to flirt with this thing again, but then it's got to go back away again because I don't really have the time or the ability or whatever. And struggling with knowing the role and the place of creativity in somebody's life, understanding the power that is actually there, that if they were to make the time, because nobody finds time, right? We all have the same amount of time. It's not like a video game where you jump up and unlock another hour. It's not like that at all. So it's prioritizing. And I think that's a big thing for people is prioritizing, learning to prioritize for creativity in whatever that looks like for them. Like I said, maybe they wanted to write a book. They've been wanting to write a book for 10 years and they're no closer today than they were 10 years ago. It's still this wish and this hope, but they haven't actually taken action on anything. So it's meeting with people like that and saying, let's figure out your next step, an action step. Let's figure out how you can be inspired and then take action. Because I think those two things have to be at work. That's what's helped me. And the context will be different from person to person because what it is maybe that they want to create, what it looks like. But I think creativity kind of all comes from that same place within us where we get excited about something. We have this idea. We want to follow through and we want to make something with our fingerprints on it. And whether that's a painting, whether that's a business, whether that's, some innovative idea or service in business, it's all the same place that it's coming from. And so tapping into that with strength, with intention and purpose is the thing that I love to come alongside of people and help them give shape to that so that it doesn't just remain this kind of ethereal pie in the sky or this, something that's looked at as like, well, that's the soft thing. It's like, painting has nothing to do with me and my business and my, what my livelihood or the things I have going on, the practicalities, the responsibilities, all that stuff. That's extra. That's over there. And so I'm like, well, you know what? We're an integrated person, or at least we should be. And so how do we take that stuff and actually make that a part of our everyday life so that we're the best version of ourselves showing up all the places we're showing up?
Yeah, I think a lot of us are afraid to kind of show a bit too much about who we are in the business world, where it's like, well, I'm expected to be this kind of way, when that's kind of the wrong thing. If you're trying to be, this has come up a few times. I think we even talked about it on your show, where I'm I'm trying to be as professional as I'm supposed to be. So I'm just going to emulate this corporate image, or I'm just going to do X, Y, Z. And that's not you. And you're not going to do that as good as, the other people that's who it is, right? So why should they deal with you? How are they going to know, like, trust you if they can't know you? So being more authentic in our business or just in our day-to-day lives, how that's actually going to help us in the long run. Yeah, there's certain people out there that might not mesh with you. They weren't going to mesh with you anyway. But now at least the people that do, are meshing with you and not just some picture of who you think they need to be. So super, super important. What would you say to a new entrepreneur, or I guess anybody that's being creative, because entrepreneurship is creativity,
Mm-hmm.
that's getting started today, that maybe a hard one lesson that you learned, from doing it before, or, just advice that you would give somebody that's early on in that process?
I would say get comfortable with evolution. And what I mean by that is where you start and what it is that you're doing out of the gate is not going to look like what things look like maybe next year, 5 years, 10 years. there is something that is happening as you're showing up, as you're trying to figure out what this looks like, as you're trying to hone skill sets and acquire new ones and build relationships and all the things you need to do. There's a lot going on. And so to put pressure on yourself that you have to have it all figured out from day one is just not reality. And so I think the quicker we could get comfortable with this idea of evolution, of knowing this is where I am today, I'm going to do the best with what I have and who I am, but I'm also remaining open, knowing that I need to grow, knowing that there are going to be challenges that are going to shape me and challenge me to get to another level if I'm going to actually continue to do this. And all of that is part of the evolution. And then we change in the process of all that. Because maybe we started in one place thinking, this is what it's going to look like. Here's what I'm really passionate about. And then we start doing that. And then we start realizing, like, you know what? If I had to do this for the rest of my life, I don't think this is the thing. I don't think this is what it looks. Maybe it's actually adjacent to that thing. And so we click a little bit over to the other way and go, I'm going to take what I learned over here and then apply it to this new emphasis or this new product or this new service. And so I think being open-handed enough, being gracious with yourself to know that you, as well as your business, is going to be a work in progress, and be comfortable with evolution.
Yeah, if you think you're getting into business and it's going to stay that exact way forever, I'm sorry, you're about to have a wake up call.
Exactly.
I don't know how to tell you this, but it's not that.
No.
So what about like power partners? Who do you synergize well with? Who are people in, maybe corresponding industries that you guys can refer back and forth and just genuinely help each other?
Yeah, I think it depends on what part of my business, because there's, like I said, there's design, right? And so the branding and marketing materials, things of that nature. That's one type of clientele. And certainly someone who's looking to leverage my skill set for that. And for me to be able to say, I'm not just going to create things that look pretty, but let's talk about strategy too. Let's talk about why you want to create the things, or why someone told you needed this particular asset. Maybe you don't. Maybe you need something different. And so entering into those conversations where it's a little bit more just that, it's a conversation, not simply just a hired gun thing. Or if it's the coaching or speaking aspect, helping people, whether it's them personally or within a business context. If it's a team, going, look, you have a team of people, and maybe you're leading this team, or maybe you're the CEO, or maybe you're someone who's, founded this company, running this company, and you're like, I want the best out of my people. I don't want them to just kind of clock in and clock out and just do the bare minimum. I want them to actually be invested. I want them to know that this is a place where they can contribute and feel the excitement of that contribution. And so being able to partner with people where I'm like, okay, if I come in and I do a workshop with you, maybe I help open the eyes a little bit of someone who's there as part of this team. And then I say, okay, well, how can then you as an organization or as a team leader continue the work that we started in that workshop, and say, building structure, so that it's not just a flash in the pan, like, hey, we had this guy come in one time and he talked about this creativity stuff and having fun and being invested in the work we do. But then, I don't know, that was kind of a blip, because then it was back to making sure that we're productive, making sure we're efficient, making sure that we're doing all the things on our tasks list and punch list. And not that that stuff is not important, but how we do those things is important, and also can stop churn and burnout and quiet quitting. And so if we can get into those conversations, I think everybody wins, because then the employee feels like they can show up at a place where they feel valued, they feel like their contribution is valued, and they can do some of their best work, even if it's outside the title of what it is they do, maybe. And the company, the CEO wins, because they have people who are invested. They have people who are excited. They have teams that are all rowing in the same direction and actually taking action towards innovation and ideas, not just giving it lip service, So love partnering in those realms.
Yeah, for sure. Having harmony inside of the business is huge. Yeah, it's how much better can it operate if, like you said, we're all rowing in the same direction.
Yeah.
So super, super awesome. How can making fun a habit boost creativity in your daily life?
So making fun a habit is something that I had to wrestle with, first off, for myself, because I realized, like, okay, there are a lot of things that I have to do that aren't necessarily fun in and of themselves, right? I don't like doing bookkeeping. I don't like paying taxes. But yet, if I don't do those things, I'm not going to be around much longer. I'll be somewhere away. But doing those things, they're necessary, but they're not necessarily what you would consider fun. And honestly, the more that I realized, like, even with the headlines of today and the world we live in, there's a lot of heaviness. There's a lot of brokenness and darkness. And if you pay more attention to that, suddenly your existence will become kind of negative, kind of bleak. And while I hadn't come to that place of like just complete, hopelessness, I started seeing that my attitude was being affected and my outlook. And I realized somewhere along the way, fun had up and left the building. And I thought to myself, what would it look like to recapture some of that joy, some of that fun, even like when you were a kid? Is it even possible? Is that even something that you can do at work? Gasp, right? And so it was this idea of, if I can learn to change this first, my head, my outlook, my thinking, then I could actually approach things differently. For instance, if I have to work with a spreadsheet, and I hate spreadsheets, and I know that this is the task before me, and before I even sit down to do it, I'm grumbling, and I'm like, this thing, it's going to suck. I can't believe this. I don't want to do this. So someone else can do this, whatever, And I've already created a bad experience for myself, and I become a self-fulfilling prophecy. Instead, if I say, okay, I have to do this thing, I don't enjoy doing this thing, I'd rather be doing something else. I'd rather go clean a toilet than deal with this spreadsheet, right? If I said, well, how can I make this fun? Maybe I put on a playlist of music that I really enjoy. And maybe I'm like doing a little dance as I'm like clicking the keys on the keyboard. And perhaps I look a little silly and a little stupid. I don't know if maybe I'm in an office environment or I work from home, whatever. It doesn't matter. The point is, looking for something that you can attach to it that you do enjoy, so that you start to change the way you see it and experience it. And I think the more that we do that with things, the more we realize, A, it's possible more than we thought, and B, we can elevate our experience. Now, did the drudgery of that spreadsheet change? No. But I changed as a result of sitting down to actually do that. And I think that's really what having fun is all about. It's not about clown noses and throwing confetti and having pizza parties at work and all that stuff. I mean, maybe that's part of it, but that's not really what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is finding some enjoyment and changing your outlook and attitude towards the things you're doing in your day-to-day life.
Yeah, that's super great advice. Just changing your perspective on it, just saying, okay, it's going to get done anyway. I can either enjoy it or not. It's really up to you. So that's awesome. What is the daily creative habit, and how can it transform your routine?
So the daily creative habit is something that I actually stumbled upon in my own creative journey when I was coming back to my creativity after being away for 10 years. I was trying to access this and figured out, how can this have a place in my life again? And so it was a process that actually emerged, and that later on I kind of quantified and said, okay, here are some steps that we can put into place when we're looking to access our creativity. And the first thing is, real briefly, it's start small, right? So often we think we need big budgets, we need big time, we need big, 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 big. Small is our best friend. 15 minutes a day spread across 7 days is so much better than waiting for a whole afternoon or a whole weekend that maybe never comes. Number two, scheduling it, which sounds like the most uncreative thing ever, right? Because you're like, the muse doesn't come Wednesday at 3:00. He's out somewhere else. But the thing is, if we never set an intention and block off time on our calendar for something, we're telling ourselves it's not really that important, because anything really important, we're putting on our calendar. We're living by that. And so it's being intentional and saying, I may not be inspired at this particular moment, but I know I'm going to show up. And you know what? A funny thing happens a lot of times when you show up in that space and you get yourself ready and you put yourself there, you find some inspiration. You start to change things. So scheduling it. Third thing I say, play. Play is important because it's experimenting. It's breaking things. It's like the mad scientist. What happens if we take this and this and put this together? Maybe something blows up. I don't know. Maybe something cool happens. Maybe there's an unexpected result that is a bridge to something that I use later. It's following curiosity. It's making that part of your daily routine so that you're having a place to work some things out that's outside the pressures of this client or this committee or this budget or this whatever. It's a place that you protect and you say, this is playtime. This is sandbox time for me to work some things out. And then I can carry those things out over to my other projects. And lastly, celebrating wins. Celebrating wins is really important because if we don't track and measure, we don't know what we're doing. We don't know if we're actually making progress. And if we don't track and measure and know when we're making progress, we can't celebrate. And celebrating is important because the more that we celebrate what we've just done, the more we want to do it. And the more that we stop in the moment, we stop the creative machine that's always saying next, 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 next. And we sit in the now and say, here's where I've been. Here's where I just grew to. Here's what I've accomplished. Here's what I actually did. Wow. Like it wasn't just a bunch of frenetic activity, but I can actually see some results. Celebrate that so that you continue to do more and more. So these are 4 kind of guiding parts of a process that I help people through and implement on a practical level and give them some inspiration so that they can see this at work in their own lives.
Yeah, I really like that. That's fantastic advice. I'm gonna have to write all that down and put it on sticky notes somewhere so I can remember it. So I got a pretty bad memory, so I got to have it, visible.
Mm-hmm.
So awesome. Why is creativity essential for success in work and personal life?
Well, going back to the thought of creativity being possibilities, I think creativity opens doors that you might not even realize are there. And so to be successful isn't just simply rinse and repeat of what has worked, because you won't gain any new ground. You won't grow as a person. You won't grow as a business. You won't experience anything new than what you're already experiencing. And I think if you truly want to make a difference and you truly want to be, quote, successful, then you need to be open to doing things that have never been done before. And that's creativity. You need to be open to asking the hard questions and wrestling with some stuff. And that's creativity. You need to be willing to think long and hard about some ideas, but then also take the action so that it starts to become a reality. That's creativity. And so I think no matter what, having all these things, again, done with intention and purpose on a daily level, you will start to experience things and a level of success, even if it's not what other people define success as, or maybe what you've thought success would look like. You'll start to experience a level of success because you're seeing things happen in you and come out of you. And it's an amazing thing. And once you experience that, you get the confidence, you just want to see more and more and more of it.
Yeah. And just in our everyday life, you notice that if you're listening to people and you're learning things and you're actually interested in what people are saying, a lot of that, your mind will wander a little bit and it'll give you ideas and it'll spark things. How many times have you been, you heard an idea or you saw something on, like, I don't know, Shark Tank or something, and you go, oh, I could have thought of that.
Yeah.
And it seems super easy and you're like, oh, everything's already done. But if you kind of sit down and, like you said, you kind of take these 2 things, you try and put them together. Okay, that didn't work. Okay, you take these 2 things. Okay, well, that's interesting. Let's see where that goes, and then chase it a bit. That's creativity. Is just being willing to learn, hear, adapt, change, and try different things. It'll blow your hair back. Yeah, I don't know. That's the only way to describe it. And like you said, once you experience it, you're like, okay, I got to do more of this. So,
Yeah.
Is there anything that I missed or failed to ask that you wanted to add?
You know, I do a lot. I do a lot of things creatively that I am the person who's creating artwork or a service, and it's more in that line. And I also do things that are more helping people tap into their own creativity. And so there's not necessarily something that I was like, hey, this would be a great thing to tap into. But I would say that this is scratching the surface of what it is that I do and how I can help people. And so if somebody's interested in having more conversation, I would totally welcome that.
If they do want to dig deeper, what's the best way they find you or get a hold of you?
So my main website is mikebrennan.me, M-E, and that's kind of the hub where you can go to all the different places, whether it's design, illustration, live event sketching, which I do, which we didn't talk about, all the resources that I have as far as books and coaching and speaking. It's all right there. And I'm also very active on Instagram. I'm at Mike Bone. There is a story behind that, Mike Bone, which you can DM me and I will certainly share that with you. We just don't have time for that today, but yeah.
Perfect. Well, we're all out there being creative anyway, whether or not we know it. So we might as well
Exactly.
get better at it. So if any of this resonated with you, absolutely reach out with Mike. He's the exact same in a one-on-one as he is on here. Super knowledgeable, super ecstatic about hearing what you're doing, giving you great ideas. He's given me a couple too, so it's coming your way. But if you're a little bit more shy and you prefer an introduction, just ask. I'm more than happy to make a three-way introduction for you. If somebody else out there would like to be interviewed, feel free to reach out to me as well. I'll have my information below Mike's in the description as well. But other than that, Mike, I really appreciate you taking the time and coming on. I'm gonna have to go back and take some notes because there's a lot of good things in there that, like I said, I'm gonna have sticky notes all over my monitor here. So yeah, awesome. I really appreciate it. Thanks again. Let's all get out there. Let's be more creative and meet some more people. All right.